Hello and welcome to Being Rad with me, Robert Alexander Duran. Today I have executive coach, author and educator Jay Forte with me. Jay, welcome.
Robert, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is in the world today. Thank you, and I'm really happy to be with you today.
Well, it's 2 p.m. here in Britain, but morning your time.
Connecticut, in Connecticut in the Northeast.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me, Jay. So, executive coach, author and educator is a nice succinct way of putting what it is that you do. But I've checked your website and I've seen there's a lot more to it than that. So please elaborate, tell me your story, and how are you having a positive impact on the world?
Thank you. There's a lot going on, like in any life, right? Nothing in life is straightforward. It's always a combination of zigs and zags. And my career was first in the financial side. I was a CPA and realized, like most things, that sometimes you end up in a place where you don't really want to be, but you're there anyway, regardless of how you got there. And one of the things that, I'm universal in that way, right? Everybody's, given into the pressures sometimes around them of where to be and what to do and who to be. And they end up on roads that just are not theirs. And so from a careerist standpoint, down deep, I always knew I was some kind of teacher. I think I have the personality for a coach. I'm a pretty good listener, and I'm really interested in helping people be better. I grew up in a pretty large Italian family, and the family, my dad was this engineer who was really focused on the concept that it is our responsibility. In fact, his quote was, "It's your job, capital J, when you come down the stairs in the morning, for you to stop and notice your world. And when you do, you have to ask yourself this question: what could you do to make it better?" And I was looking at the financial world that I was in, and I'm like, that's not where I have any impact. It's just not the life that I want or where I want to be. Couple that with, I grew up in a big Italian Catholic family, but I was the gay kid in the family. And so again, not only was I in the wrong job, I was kind of in the wrong life everywhere. Got married. I have 3 wonderful kids and 7, almost 8 grandkids. My 8th one is due in January. So the road that most people take are the ones that they feel sometimes pressured to doing. And though I understand now that being a parent was always some true desire of mine, and I love that, the ability to come clean about showing up to the world in the way that you truly are has really hallmarked an awful lot of what my work is. Who are you and what are you here to do? And if you pretend anywhere, you're not doing much, because you spend all of your time pretending. And your energy, there's only so much of it. And if you spend it, navigating around what is yours, then you don't use it to do what is yours. And that's kind of where I've shown up. And had I been able to write the script, I don't know I would have ever written the script. But now that I get to have this, I like this script. I spend all of my time working with companies and people on who are you and where in today's world do you fit, so that you can do something big. I mean, I got to believe that you're here for more than just consuming the things that are on the planet. And if you could figure out what that was or is, then when you use your day, you're further along. You're happier. The world benefits from something that only you can do. And there's a really good Buckminster Fuller quote. He asks, what is on the planet that needs doing that you know something about that probably won't happen unless you go do it? And I really like that it is our job to pay attention on purpose, figure ourselves out, and put ourselves in places that allow us to really show up. And that's what the Forte factor is about. In fact, it's so funny. A colleague friend of mine said, "How is that not the name of your business? You were born with the last name Forte."
Yeah.
Gifts, the Forte factors. What's your thing? Where do you show up? How do you show up? And that's where I find that we do the biggest work now. That and around the theme of getting ready for life.
All of that is so profound. Everything you just said was amazing.
It's been...
What's the getting ready for life part of it then?
So one of the things I realized that, knowing early on that I was a gay kid in a family that didn't allow it. And the gay, it's not the issue about being gay. The issue is whether you take the time early on to accept who you are and use it to go in a world that looks like the world that we have. So an awful lot of the work that we do under the guise of mindfulness and awareness, self-awareness, self-management is really about being ready for a world that comes at you fast and is loaded with change and challenge. So Ready for Life is a new podcast a colleague friend of mine and I are starting. And it is also the theme of a program we are launching into high schools. How do we help kids get ready for the world they'll land in, not the world that they're necessarily in now? And what can the school do differently so that people are prepared to be human in a world that looks like our world, which is loaded with change and challenge? It's just how it is. Philosophers for thousands of years have been writing about this stuff because they've been trying to give humanity some tips on how to be in a world of change and challenge. And though the change and challenge are different in our world, it doesn't change the fact that it's change and challenge. And you're human and you got emotions. And when you put all that together, you get these rants on Facebook and you get these other lack of self-control things that absorb all your energy instead of allowing you to kind of focus in, understand, and move forward with intention. So Ready for Life is a series of tools we're trying to arm today's youth with in order to, how do you meet the world where it is? If you think of life as improv, right? You don't get to say no when life comes at you. You have to say yes and. So our question is,
recently watching Lucifer, where Detective Espinosa uses that to get over the breakdown of his marriage.
It's yes and, not no but. I have that same conversation with my kids. No but, no, yes and. This is what you've got. So who do you need to be and how do you need to think about it to make something good out of this? Otherwise, you'll spend all of your energy feeling irritated, aggravated, frustrated, disappointed, all those hot emotions that once you get started with those, they take a while to come out. So if that's the case, then don't spend so much time there. How do I help you manage so you don't have to spend so much time there? So Ready for Life is really some guidance. And once we get moving a little more on the podcast, it's how do we get stories much like you're doing? How do you pull stories from other people on what they've learned so we can accelerate the learning so we can have tools to land on our feet and be ready for a life that looks like this one? You can be disappointed it's not going your way, or you can realize it's time to show up to it.
Who is the program going to be kind of targeted at? I know you said it's going to be children in schools. Is it going to be like the LGBTQ kind of kids, neurodivergent, or is it just for the whole lot? Even if it fit in perfectly, even in school, the kids are envious of that. I have no envy for now.
So that's that. My oldest daughter is a PR and marketing person. She has that comment to me all the time. You can't say that what you do is for everybody, Dad, because then you're scattered too much. So our first target are for high school and college kids who are on the cusp of needing to know how to be in a world so they can then make wiser choices. And it came out of a book that I had written, The Greatness Zone. The Greatness Zone is a story of two kids who meet in college. One kid is really together and the other kid isn't. And they sit together next to each other in a philosophy class and they're talking about know yourself. And one kid kind of brushes off as just this, gobbledygook. And the other one says, no, that's what my family's done. We've all taken time to know ourselves, know our world, and put the two together on purpose. And then we can live with intention. We do things on purpose. And I very much had a family like that. So this was kind of a summary of the way that I grew up. But what it also gave me was, a simple way of saying, what do I need to know to be successful in a world? Now, I'd love everybody to have it. And once you have this approach, some tools on how to know yourself, tools on how to manage yourself, because that's where a lot of people lose it, and the ability to tune into your world to just gather information about it before you react to it. That once you know all that, then you start to move the pieces like this is a chess game and not this random tiddlywinks game that a lot of people just roll out of bed and get pushed. And the reason why I brought up the things that happened to me before is that's what I did. The louder voices said, go here, get married, be an accountant, do this. And I went and did it. And they just were not my life. They were not for me. And
how was it growing up with that kind of family that says, know yourself, take in the world around you, don't be reactive. And yet you're the gay kid in a Catholic family. There's dissonance there. How did you live? And what's it been like reconciling that and being able to be authentic coming out the other side?
Thank you. That is a great question. It led me almost to suicide one night, because trying to please too many people, knowing on the inside what you are and what you're supposed to do, but that was so contrary to the way that it had to manifest itself on the outside.
Did you feel like it was hypocritical, like there was hypocrisy to it? Because they're saying, know yourself, but you're not allowed to be this thing that you actually are.
Yeah.
That's confusing even to me to hear.
Yeah, it's know yourself so long as it looks like this. And so when I look back on the decisions that I made, I knew myself up to that point. But then what I realized is that I was making nobody's life great by pretending to be something that I wasn't. Not on the work side. I was married to a fantastic person, but she also didn't deserve the husband that she was having compared to one that she could have, that belonged where that relationship was. So lots of years ago, we've settled all that. The kids and the grandkids, they're spectacular. We all do great. But it was a big period of lots of years of turning back inward and trying to understand how everything. In fact, here was the way I explained to my dad, who was the consummate Catholic in this, that really had a problem with it. My mom, not so much. He said, these are the rules that we have to live by. And I remember saying to him, but what if those aren't my rules? And so I get all the other ones about showing up and doing big work and being loving and charitable and all the virtues. I get that. But why then is this one not for me? I don't understand that.
And what does it matter? My take on this has always been like, some people like Bjork. Remember her? That It's So Quiet song? I don't like it.
Right.
Does it matter to me if other people like that music? Same translates over to sexuality. People can do whatever they want. I've always been heterosexual through and through, but it doesn't matter. I don't need to care about what anyone else likes or does. You know what I mean? So that's always confused me, that like they've had that rule of like, thou shalt not lay with another man. It's an abomination. Like, oh, who cares?
Yeah, well, so that's where it came to. So I remember saying to my dad when I finally said, look, I get what your rules are, but this is my life. You've passed me the baton. I'm running this. This is mine. And I get to call it any way that I need to. I'm not losing them, my foundations, but many of the things that I thought were true weren't true for me. So this is like middle of life, starting getting dropped off in the jungle with no map, no compass, no machete, go start again. And at least that time of starting again, it felt like all of the things that I were doing that, from a work and relationship standpoint made sense to me, whereas the other ones didn't. So I think I caught up in a hurry trying to do an awful lot of the things that I think I was supposed to be doing and never did. And now that's what I do. And funny, the big thing that moves me along the most are watching my grandkids. I'm particularly tuned in to knowing what my struggle was to land on my feet in a world that kept challenging me for reasons that were none of its business. But it didn't change the fact that it did it. So where do I gather information to trust my own perspective sometimes more than others? And that was my own work I had to do, and not be so influenced by things that Italian families do or Catholic families do, or whatever was the guidance at the time. There comes a point where you must know yourself and let that self be the way that you move through your life. And it took me a while, but I'm here now. So now what I want to do is kind of accelerate or make it easier for anybody to figure out how to be okay in a world that looks like our world. And so I kind of keep my grandkids, they're age 4 to 9. There's 7 of them in that time period. And I'm writing an awful lot of, I've always been kind of a word nerd. So I've been writing a lot of this rhyming poetry for them that uses some of the big thinking of philosophy about knowing yourself and managing your emotions and acknowledging that sometimes things don't work out, and we're okay with that, so that I could create some couplets or some rhymes that as they bump into that in life, they don't need to wait too far down the line before they solve it. They know right away, oh, here's what I do in that. So the latest collection we're working on is called Along the Bumpy Road. And it's a book of poems and stories, much like Shel Silverstein's, funny things and rhyming things that help kids to say, the version of you that's here is the right one. Whatever anybody else says, the right one is here. And one of the poems titles is "You're great and you're awesome just as you are." And again, I couldn't have written a lot of that had I not struggled through my own pieces to get to this point, which reminds me a lot that, life sometimes we figure out where to be because of what's happened to us. And I look back through most of this and think it was improv. There was a lot of things in there I didn't like. And I almost said no, but I almost did. But all other times it was, okay, yes, and, what am I going to do with this? How do I deal with that? How do I help my father understand, or my siblings understand, or my ex-wife understand that this is not what life is about? It's a component of life, but it's still the others.
What was the title of that poem again?
You're great and you're awesome just as you are. It's a free download on our website. So,
is that just for the poem or for the book?
Oh, that's just for the poem. The book, we're still working on getting an illustrator for the book. So the book, I hope, will be out in the spring.
You'll have to let me know, because my girlfriend's 2 kids are in need of that, I think, judging by what you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, say it one more time.
You're great and you're awesome just as you are. And it's a free download on the website.
I wish somebody had told me that as a child. But also, I wish someone had been able to make me believe that as a child, because it's one thing to be told it, and it's a very different thing to believe it. Is there anything that you do that speeds up that indoctrination of those ideals? Because I guess with being in a Catholic family, you're indoctrinated into what the Bible says, instead of the indoctrination of you're great and awesome just as you are. You don't need to change. You don't need to fit into the box of heterosexuality. So is there anything that you do or teach to speed that self-acceptance process up?
I think two thoughts come to mind when you ask that. It's a really good question. One is to work with parents, because sometimes, to me, what you need is to have the people around you who care about you support the fact that you get to be who you are, and that you can't do your own big work as a unique and completely different individual than anybody else. I have 5 siblings, and no 2 of the 6 of us are remotely alike in what we did for work, or how we raised our kids, or who we chose as partners. So it says, coming from the same family, look how different and unique you are. And my point I like to make with kids, or high school and college kids, when we talk to them, is that that's the way there's room on the planet for everybody to have their thing. If we all were cut from the same or had to do the same, and that's sometimes why I fight with these institutions that say, here's what it's supposed to look like.
Well, I think you just said there,
yeah,
the school system is designed to make everyone the same, to be workers. And that's not the way that the world can even be sustainable, I don't think.
I'm with you on that one, Robert. The newest thing that we're working on is a Ready for Life Center. It's a concept. We have one large school in Miami that's starting it, where they care so much about what their kids will do with their lives after they graduate, that they don't want to run them through the same old, same old. And there's 2 parts to it. The first part is discovery. Who are you? So that freshmen in high school, 9th graders, have work on, if they haven't ever done it before, what are my strengths? What are my liabilities? The other side that doesn't work so easily. What are my passions and my interests? What are my triggers? If I could know them, then when they're happening, already I'd be a different person, able to manage them, or with intention use them. And then once they develop a little bit of that, then the remaining time in high school is what we call exploration. Go see what the world has. And when you do, register. Scale of 1 to 10. Good coaching question. Coaches always use scaling questions. Scale of 1 to 10. 10, I love it. 1, I hate it. this thing you just saw in an assembly about technology or gaming or security or social services, where are you with that? How did it strike you? What numbers? If you've got things in your 8, 9s, or 10s, I bet you're finding things in today's world that really get your attention. And maybe that's your place to start. But here's what that looks like. So when you finish, don't go to college because everybody goes to college. Go to college because it's a roadmap to give you something that matters in your life. And that's really hard for a prestigious school like the one we're working with, where the parents think not only is it important to go to college, but it must be a great college because that way it looks great to our friends. And okay, now I'm back to saying, whose life is this? You want your kids to look great, but they have to wake up each morning and go live their life. Shouldn't they be learning and doing things or living in an environment that makes that great for them? You had your chance as a kid. So it's their turn.
It's that whole thing that Gary Vee talks about, like earning a certain amount of money so you can buy things to impress people you don't even like,
Right.
making your kids go to a college so you look good. Like, not a nice paradigm to live in. How, like you said about working with parents, so they're the ones saying to their kids, like, you go be whoever you want. I did have that from my parents. They've always said, like, be who you want, yet they didn't really encourage it. Like, they were fine with it, but they weren't like, go on, go and do this, put everything in. There always was that plan B that they wanted me to have. Do you work with those parents to allow themselves to say, like, you are you, go all in on whatever it is that you want to do?
We are getting there. We're kind of coming in it from the back door of this is our thinking, because coming head on to a parent to say, it's right that your kid be who they are, when in fact, very few parents would agree with you that. It's right that they be our version of this because we know them and we know what would make them happy and they should be this, when in fact, most parents don't know those answers, but they think they know those answers. So trying to lay out through the school the opportunity for kids to see a lot of things and then encourage dialogue back with the parents. Here's what the school put on for us so we could see this or try this or do an internship about this, so that I just start to see whether it's resonating or not. And what we're asking parents to do in that is be open to the conversation that comes from that. Just gather information, let them explore in this environment. That's why I think high school is a really good place for that. I think college is also a really good place for that. The problem is it's expensive. That's a really expensive environment for you to go try things out.
Yeah.
So what could you try out in high school that would give you greater clarity or a little more information about where maybe things are, so that you could then say, what do I think I want to do next? And, when I look back at being a CPA, I did that because my loving parents said, gee, your room is so neat and organized, you should probably be an accountant. And that's a hell of a reason to be an accountant. And there were aspects of it I really liked, but day in and day out, checking everybody else's numbers, I wasn't born for that. There are people that's their thing. I love that that's their thing. And they thrive and they invent big things and do big things. I knew that wasn't for me. So then I had to shift out of that, like a lot of other things I had to shift out of in order to find the courage in order to go forward.
There's that difference between being good at something and it being what you want to do, isn't it? Like, it sounds like you were good with numbers, but just from talking to you in this short time now, I can tell you're far more creative than numbers alone would ever allow for. And everything you've said actually just made me realize how different the world is now because of the abundance of opportunity. Like 50 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe less, more than 20 years ago, if you were told you should be an accountant, you probably would go, yeah, okay, I can do that. And then do it for your entire life. Probably retire a bit resentful that you hadn't tried anything. Whereas now it's like, you're going to come across people on social media doing the stuff that you want to do, or at least try and find out about it. And if you're not open to like trying new things, you're always going to know that there's other people doing it. Do you think that's something, am I just making that up? Or is that what you're seeing as well.
No, I think you're right on with that. The way information moves today, it puts in front of us things, and so this is the double-edged sword, right? And it's completely overwhelming for somebody young saying, "So where do I go?" when everything is possible.
Yeah, because you get 6-year-olds asking, saying that they want a Lamborghini. Sorry, little man, but you've got a few steps on the ladder before you get there.
Yeah, and I know the conversation because I spent a lot of time working with these concepts in companies because they're human concepts. Everything in the workplace is all about relationship, and relationship comes from you knowing and managing yourself. Nobody wants to work with or for a jerk. Well, if you don't know yourself and manage yourself, there's no way you're interacting with other people to make things happen in the workplace. So the more I end up, the more time I'm in the workplace, the more I see just exactly what you're saying. These people who are new in the workplace are already presuming that these bigger positions and all of the benefits that go with it come along quickly. And like we were talking about just before the show, it seems that everybody wants the cliff notes, like we're in this dash through life. Let me quickly get to the big job. Let me quickly get the big hit. I need 100,000 followers. Well, that comes from the hard work because there's something important you're doing and people believe it.
Yeah.
And we should be willing to take the journey, the navigating the road. Like, we're big gardeners in the family. We had our house was an old inn when my folks bought it because there were a lot of us. And the path from the front door to the street, my dad's comment was it should never be a straight line. It should always meander because the view as you turn here is different than the view when you turn over here. And the reason why we have careers is that each day in a career creates a turn that you say, okay, from this view, what do I now see? From this view, what do I now see? So then we keep backing up and saying, well, how do we help you be the person that at that turn takes it in and sees the possibility there? That's what we're really after.
Like taking the blinkers off. Is it blinkers? Blinders?
Blinders, yeah. Yeah, that you couldn't see this view until you got here. And I sort of look back on my life and I'd say, well, how come I didn't know this earlier? Well, I wasn't ready to know it earlier. When I got here, the view that was in front of me said, go try this. And then when I take 10 more steps forward, I'm going to ask myself again, what does the view look like here? And now what's available? And
that's the thing. I mentioned how my parents have been with me. I love my parents and I think they did a fantastic job. And last year, just before my dad had a perforated bowel, he asked me whether I resented how I had been brought up. I was like, no, not in the slightest. You did the very best you could with the information you had available.
Right.
And it's all you can ever do. But if you're not utilizing all of the information you have available and you've got the blinders on, then you're screwing yourself over. But they did what they could, and they did the best they could, knowing what they knew of me and knowing what they knew of the world. Thing is, we know a lot more of the world thanks to the internet. So they would do it. I'd hope they'd do it differently if I was born now. But I'm not.
Yeah, and I like your image of the blinders. So with expanded awareness, right? If these get wider, then all of this becomes available. So it's not this anymore, it's this. So all of these other things now get into the running. Is there something that's a better fit in there? Is there something that gets your interest in there? But we always kid the kids when we talk to them, look, you weren't born with an owner's manual. Nobody told you here's what you're going to be or who you're going to be or how you're supposed to live. You have to make that up on the fly. So what do you need to know about you so that when you make those decisions, they make sense for who you are? And the funny thing, so I turned 66 this past couple of weeks ago. And so now I'm realizing that this whole ready for life stuff is right for retirees as well. There are an awful lot of people who are older who still don't know how to be really connected and collect. They worked their whole life and now they don't know what to do next.
If anything, it could be even more relevant for retirees because they've already had a lifetime of conditioning, pushing them into being someone that they, at their core, they're not. That's why I'm very thankful I would not have thought you were 66, by the way, but I just turned 34. I am very thankful to be on this path now of like learning so much and not being stuck in one of those jobs where you work it for 40 years and retire still not knowing who you are. Like, I wasted my 20s full on, and I wish I hadn't, but at least I'm not wasting the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Good. Yeah.
Jay, this has been an absolute wonder, and really love everything that you're doing. And like I said, I'd love to pick up that book when that gets published in the spring. Can you tell people where they can find more about you and how to get involved with everything that you're doing, should they so wish?
Thank you, Robert. Yes, we put everything on our small little website. It's called twofold.com. You can find everything there. We have a couple of neat things. We built this little talent assessment that gives you your core strengths so that you actually have words. In fact, we even have a free online assessment for kids because everybody should know. It's called 3 About Me. What are my 3 big words? So every kid can go online and take that and come away a little more informed about what they're really good at and what kinds of things interest them. There's plenty of other things out there, but it's at thefortefactor.com.
That's awesome. And if they want to find you on social media, where are the best places? You said you're a wordsmith, so I'm assuming LinkedIn, Twitter?
LinkedIn.
All right.
Yeah, LinkedIn is my big one because it's until recently it's been mostly about the workplace. But with our Ready for Life podcast that's coming out, you'll see us on all social media. So watch for Ready, the number 4 Life. That'll be our podcast and that'll be out soon.
Amazing. Jake, thank you so much. We should probably do this again sometime.
I would love that. You can tell I have no problem talking about this stuff.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
For you watching and listening at home, keep being rad.